you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
As Jesus continued his journey to Jerusalem, he traveled through Samaria and Galilee. As he was entering a village, 10 lepers met him. They stood at a distance from him and raised their voices, saying, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." When he saw them, he said, "Go, show yourselves to the priests." As they were going, they were cleansed. And one of them, realizing he had been healed, returned glorifying God in a loud voice. He fell at the feet of Jesus and thanked him. He was a Samaritan. Jesus said in reply, 10 were cleansed, were they not? Where are the other 9? Has none but this foreigner returned to give thanks to God? Then he said to him, "Stand up and go. Your faith has saved you." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus.
The rabbi asked the prophet, "Where shall I find the Messiah?" He responded, "At the city gates among the lepers." The rabbi queried, "What is he doing there?" The prophet answered, "He changes the bandages." Today's readings bring us face to face with terminal illness, with death. For when somebody had what you call Hansen's disease or leprosy in the time of Jesus, up really until the 1960s, when medication was found to contain and heal the process of leprosy, up to 1960, when you had leprosy, it was basically a death sentence. In the time of Jesus, people were basically eliminated from their townships. If you had leprosy at the beginnings, you were thrown out. You had to live in your own little hovel with people who had the same type of disease. And if you went anywhere, you had to yell out, "Unclean, unclean." You'd yell out, you rang bells. And the reason so that if anybody who did not have leprosy was around, they could run and hide. You were not supposed to be in any place where there were healthy people, but every so often it may have happened. They weren't even allowed to cover their heads. Everybody else could, especially in the sun, but they could not. They suffered, and it was a disease that affected every part of your body. Oftentimes your hips, your legs, everything was deformed, your fingers. Pus would come out of your eyes. It was just incredibly cruel disease. And there was no way of healing it. Yet today in the gospel, we see these 10 people who are desperate call out to Jesus. They may have known him. Biblical scholars claim that Jesus may have gone to that town quite often. He was on his way to Jerusalem. It's sort of the last part of Jesus' own life. It was a town, according to scripture scholars, that was called El Ganim. There's some ruins of an ancient church that commemorate the place where Jesus may have healed them. In any case, here come these men, and they obviously had heard of Jesus, so they may have even seen him, because they cry out his name, they recognize him. Now, again, according to rabbinic law, a rabbi never should have gone near them. He wasn't supposed to touch them, be near them. It was against rabbinic laws. But here is Jesus, the great rabbi, who not only goes near them, he begins to talk with them. He spoke with them. according to the scripture today, he only tells them to go show themselves to the priest. But before that, there may have been a dialogue. How long have you been sick? How long have you been alienated from your families and friends? Jesus speaks to them. But unlike in most scriptural stories, Jesus doesn't heal them there, but he sends them away. Go show yourselves to your priests. So they leave, and on their way over, because again, had they gone to the priest with leprosy, the priest would have run away. That was not supposed to happen. So on their way over, they began to notice something. Their legs are stronger, their skin is pure as snow. They're being healed. Their eyes that were pussy or their ears that were drooping, all of a sudden, they're being healed. So by the time they get to the synagogue, they're healed. It's an amazing story. And the first story today from the book of Kings is about Naaman. Naaman, who was again a non-Jew, who's asked to go to this Jordan River, this small river, and to bathe himself. Now, at the end, notice what he does. He comes back and he wants to bring Elisha a gift, but Elisha says, no, I don't need a gift. He says, let me take some sand, some dirt back with me to my country. See, remember when Pope John Paul II came to the United States, he always began every journey here, and whichever country he went to, he would get on the tarmac and kiss the ground as a sign of reverence. Well, what Naaman does, he asks for dirt to bring back because it's in this sacred place that he was healed. So he wants to have this dirt as a reminder that he's met the God of gods, the God who healed him. It's a beautiful story. In the gospel, only 1 out of 10 return to thank God. And you may say, well, gee, where were the other 9? Well, the other 9 were very much like often we are. We feel entitled. We live in that type of culture today where, and it's no different, there were 9 who didn't return. They maybe felt, I deserve to be healed. We feel that we deserve a lot in our culture. We deserve better wages, and we deserve better houses. We deserve better everything. And to some extent we may, but are we ever grateful for what we receive? Do we always look at things in terms of it's only half full or half empty rather than half full? When somebody wants to reconcile, are we perhaps negative in responding? Do we see life always in a negative way? Life is bad. Everything around us is falling apart. When we meet with people and they leave us, do they feel better for having spent an afternoon or an hour with us? Or do they feel perhaps depressed, despondent? That's a good question, good questions to ask. So these guys maybe felt they deserved it, whereas one guy comes back, 1 out of 10. And it says he fell at the feet of Jesus. Sometimes when I go to Eucharistic adoration late at night, I'll notice some people who are literally on the floor of the church, just prostrate, they're praying. And I think to myself how beautiful it is to see people who just want to give everything over to God as an act of thanksgiving. The Eucharist means thanksgiving. One great author once said, God has 2 homes, one in heaven and one in a thankful heart. One in heaven and one in a thankful heart. Are we grateful for everything that we've received? Yesterday I was coming back from Nova Scotia. I went up Friday, I drove up for a funeral of a friend of mine, funeral for his dad. On the way through New Brunswick and on the way back yesterday, the foliage was just, it was beautiful. It is here too. The foliage was so beautiful. I kept thinking as I was praying, because I had a lot of time to pray, saying, Lord, thank you for this foliage. Thank you for everything that you give me for my car, for my ability to be able to go up to Nova Scotia and back. And we have so many things that we should be grateful for. And oftentimes I think we forget. The word Eucharist means thanksgiving. How often after receiving communion do we really take time to thank Jesus for everything that he has given us, for giving us his very body and blood at the Eucharist, week after week? Do we thank him? Do we take time to reflect on the many ways that he's blessed us? The sage says, we shall be Christians when we weep, not because we have lost something, but because we have been given so much. We have been given so much. So let's thank God today for friends and family. Let's thank God for our health, for families, for our marriages, for our children. By our being grateful, we teach our own children, our own surrounding families and friends that it's okay to say thank you, not only once, but many times a day. Because in the end, it's all about what God has done for us. So let's not weep because of what we've lost, but let's weep today because we have been given so much.